Chef Brendan.
Hey there, Farmer Brian.
Happy St. Patty's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you. I'm just looking for our traditional St. Patrick's Day corn here.
Just very
kidding.
green.
You may have corn on St. Patrick's Day, but we're looking for something else, actually. I'm looking for a nice beet for our dish today, and there's a bunch hidden right under this corn here. I'm just going to grab one of these guys. There we go. Really close together, so I'm trying not to pull too many at the same time. Leave as much soil in the garden as we can.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we grab these beets, we get some hitchhikers, so we want to be careful not to pull anything else out. There we go. Look at that beet. That's a good looking beet.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's one ingredient we need for today's special holiday lunch. Let's mosey on over here a little bit. Don't need any rosemary today, but that would be good with one of our ingredients. Your sunflower's getting big there.
Yeah, taller than me. Down to the boat.
Here we go. So our second ingredient is growing under this plant here. I don't know if you guys remember what this plant is, but it's actually a potato plant. So let me see if I can pull a potato out of there. Oh, there we go. A fresh red potato. These are actually growing underground. I just snuck this one out here. These ones aren't quite ready yet. So we have some red potatoes, some beets, and then we only need one more ingredient for our dish today, for our St. Patrick's Day lunch. Here it is, our cabbage. Beautiful head of cabbage, all ready to go for our St. Patrick's Day lunch. All I need to do is go into the back into the kitchen and get a little saw to cut this guy off. So we'll come back and get him in a few minutes. So let's head to the kitchen, get our tools, get our beets all cleaned up and our potatoes, and start our St. Patrick's Day lunch.
All right, Chef Brendan.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody.
All right.
So we're gonna make a traditional St. Patrick's Day dish for our lunch today. Corned beef and cabbage with potatoes. So you saw we got some potatoes, and we saw we had that cabbage, a head of cabbage outside. And did you see us harvest the beef? I didn't either, so let's change that. Let's change that to corned beets and cabbage and potatoes. We're gonna put our own twist on it today. And why beets? Because we know beets are so good for you. We've talked about beets a whole bunch of different times in this class. Tons of vitamins and minerals, just to name a few. C, B6, A, manganese, potassium. They're loaded with vitamins and minerals. We eat the whole plant, the stems, the root, and the leaves. And today we're gonna cook our beets and our cabbage and our potatoes in 3 different ways. But they happen to be 3 of the healthiest ways you could possibly cook food. First, our beets, we're gonna roast them. And we're gonna roast them with a little bit of olive oil and spices. Our cabbage, we're gonna steam it. And our potatoes, we're gonna boil them. So our cabbage and our potatoes are both being cooked using only water, right? The potatoes are cooked under the water. They're boiling under the water, and the cabbage is cooked above the water, but via the steam. These are also what are considered super clean ways to cook. So clean cooking methods, because we're not adding anything extra. We're just using water, and then we'll add a little bit of salt and pepper and maybe a little bit of olive oil at the end. So those are our 3 healthy ways we're gonna cook. Let's talk for a minute about the history of St. Patrick's Day and corned beef and cabbage. Here's good old Ireland, across the pond as they call it over there. They call the Atlantic Ocean the pond. And this is where St. Patrick came from. St. Patrick has a very interesting history, and we won't get too into it now, but he was kidnapped as a child. He was forced to be a slave. Eventually he returned to Ireland and drove the snakes out of Ireland. And his sainthood is celebrated all around the world, but particularly in Ireland and in the United States. So corned beef and cabbage, right? Remember we talked about the potato famine when the Irish immigrants came over, many of which landed in New York City. Well, they weren't the only immigrants escaping starvation and oppression at the time. There were many people from around the world doing the same thing. And one of those groups of people were the Jewish people of Eastern Europe. They also immigrated and landed up in New York City with the Irish. And both the groups of immigrants were pretty poor, so they ended up in the poorest neighborhoods of the city together. So the cultural melting pot of what is New York City was taking place. So let's talk about corned beef and cabbage. The Irish immigrants, so we have our Irish immigrants and our Jewish immigrants, both came, like I said, to New York City around the same time and lived in the same neighborhoods. So on St. Patrick's Day, the Irish, the poor Irish immigrants would want to purchase something special for a meal. So they'd buy the corned beef from the Jewish butchers and deli owners. So it kind of became a combined cultural dish. The corned beef supplied by the Jewish immigrants to the Irish immigrants, who added some of the cheapest vegetables you could find at the time, which were potatoes and cabbage. So it was a full meal that poor immigrants can afford, and it really is an Irish, Jewish, American cultural tradition. Okay, and actually, you'd be lucky if you found corned beef and cabbage on a menu in Ireland on St. Patrick's Day, because they don't eat it on St. Patrick's Day. It's an American thing, or an Irish, Jewish, American tradition. So let's make our version of it, our corned beets and cabbage instead of corned beef and cabbage. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to boil our potatoes. So I have these nice red potatoes, and we're just going to do a simple geometry. We're going to half them, and then we're going to half them again, and then we're going to half them again. So we'll get 8 nice even little pieces of it. Water's boiling. Get our potatoes in there, and they will cook. 20 minutes it'll take for the potatoes about. Okay, let's get our second ingredient, which is our cabbage. So I have some nice cabbage here that you saw we got from the garden, and it's already been halved, and I'm just going to take this little root part out, this triangle, and we're going to save that for our compost, for our worm food, and they'll have fun munching on that for a long time. And then again, we're just going to half it again, and half it again, and make these little nice wedges, and they will serve as like a little iceberg wedge. It'll be a nice presentation. We're going to steam them whole, like those whole little wedges. And our steaming basket here, and we're just going to place that right over our boiling water from our potatoes. And we're just going to place the wedges in there, and we're going to let them steam while the potatoes cook. So while the potatoes are boiling, the cabbage will steam from all that boiling water, and I'm just going to kind of rest the lid on there gently so the heat builds back up, and we'll let those guys go for maybe like 10 minutes on the cabbage. Okay, so let's move on to our beets. Here's the beet, all cleaned up, those beautiful greens and beautiful stems. A lot of times you can tell what kind of beet it's going to be by the stems, and I think we're just going to have a classic dark red beet here. So let's take the top off and see. Oh yeah, look at that. It's a pretty beet. Definitely saving the stems and the leaves, and we can compost our little tail piece there, a little root piece. And I'm just going to, gently peel very little off, kind of like shaving the hairs off the beet. All those little roots come off the side. And one more. There we go. And we can compost our little beet skins there. And I'm just going to cut this guy into nice discs. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch thick. Because remember, we're going to roast them. So we don't want to cut them too thin because we don't want them to shrivel up. And we don't want to cut them too thick because they'll never cook. There we go. So we got these nice big discs. And we're just going to get those in our bowl here. And we are going to spice them up a little bit. First, I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil on there. You don't need much. You don't want them to be soggy. And then for our spices, I had brought some of that pickling spice blend, which is very similar to spices used in when you brine meats. And we're going to really spice up these corned beets with some of these spices. We have some allspice berries, some mustard seed, some coriander, some chili flakes, a little bit of oregano. And what we need to do is we need to grind up those whole seeds. So I brought a little spice grinder, or AKA coffee grinder, and I'm just going to sprinkle some of our spices in there, our whole spices, and just grind them up. There we go. And we can take those spices and we're just going to sprinkle them right on our beets. And it'll give them a really, really nice flavor profile. Something a little different. Okay. And we're just going to toss them up so they're all coated nice and evenly. And we're just going to roast them off at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes in a little oven like this, maybe 20 minutes in a bigger oven. Let those guys roast, and then we'll check back on our dish in a few minutes. We're just about ready to plate. I'm going to take some of these really nice beet greens, and I'm going to use one or two of these as kind of like an edible garnish. Just place it on there. And I'm going to get our beets. Our roasted beets are all ready. And you'll see how nice they are. Beautifully roasted corned beets. Look at that texture, those colors. Got our cabbage all steamed up and ready to go here, so I'm just going to take a wedge of it, place it right next to our beets, nice and high, and then going to grab some of our potatoes out of here. And we'll just make a nice little pile of our nice red skin potatoes here. And one more, I think. Okay. And we can just season this really simply. You can drizzle a little olive oil on our potatoes and our cabbage. You could put a little butter on if you want to. I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of salt and pepper. Like I said, it's a really clean way to eat. So boiled potatoes, steamed cabbage, and roasted corned beets. That's our St. Patrick's Day, new St. Patrick's Day tradition we're passing on to you. Hope you guys can try this at home. Really good dish. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thanks, Chef Brendan.
You're welcome. Enjoy.
All right. I think I could eat that any time of the year.
You sure could.